Gracias por venir a todos. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Most heritage languages, which are the languages that come for our family or community, are lost within the second or third generation.
Okay.
Bilingual generation is developed with that hope that we pass on our bilingualism to the next generation. Bilingualism is more accessible now than ever. My name is Dr. Veronica Benavides. I am the founder of Bilingual Generation in Houston, Texas.
Here to share more about her mission through the power of diversity and language, Dr. Veronica Benavides, founder of Bilingual Generation. Good morning.
Hi, Deborah.
All right, I want to get something out of the way first, off the top, because sometimes when you say something like this, people think, well, no, wait a minute. We have this battle over foreign languages since this country actually started,
yes.
right? So you're not saying that a unifying language like English needs to be replaced. You're just saying there's no reason to take away the others.
Exactly. I mean, multilingualism at Bilingual Generation, we say we have it in our bones. It's something that we just innately are able to do if we have the right conditions. And a lot of times children who have a heritage language or a language that comes from their family or community should be able to develop that alongside English. And in fact, research shows that when kids are supported in their home language, their English acquisition is stronger, faster, those literacy skills transfer. And so it's just better for everybody and helps us to be more connected and empathetic.
Yeah, and if you look at, when you say heritage culture, we celebrate food like crazy in this city,
yes.
right? Like, oh, this is the food of this country or this heritage or this ethnicity. We celebrate, art pieces, all of that. Mm-hmm. This is a part of that fabric, if you will.
Yeah.
And so, as you mentioned, it helps the brain to develop when you're learning multi-languages. What's interesting, especially in this country, because I grew up kind of around the world,
mm-hmm.
is that we start teaching foreign language in many cases in high school.
Right.
And it's like, and then it's a form of foreign language where it's not necessarily so conversational.
Right. I mean, the best time to start is early childhood. Children are like sponges at that age. It's very, very easy for them to absorb multiple languages. My children, for instance, speak 3 languages, and that has kind of been their norm since birth. And in many parts of the world, multilingualism is a norm from early childhood. And so in the US, like you mentioned, we generally don't introduce it until high school, which is still, possible. I didn't learn Spanish until I was in my 20s, really kind of speaking it. So it is possible, but it's so much easier if we start in those early years.
And it's interesting that you didn't learn it even though your parents, that was their first language, your grandmother, okay, you're raised in Aldine, Texas. Parents were from the Rio Grande Valley.
Yes.
Spanish was their first language, but they didn't think Spanish would help you professionally or academically. I remember moving from Taipei, Taiwan to San Antonio,
mm-hmm.
and I heard this foreign language in my friends' homes. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I would try to speak some out,
mm-hmm.
in public, and they would look at me and go, no, we're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Because it was something shameful almost at that time.
Yeah.
And now, today, we're finally realizing it's not. You celebrate that. And so, but for you, your parents didn't see the value in it, so you didn't really learn it, even though that's how they were communicating with each other.
Yeah. I mean, I think they got that message very early on when they entered into the schooling system. So they entered into school in the Rio Grande Valley speaking the language of their home, the language of their community, which was Spanish. Mm-hmm. And they were very quickly, punished for speaking that language. Back then, corporal punishment in Texas was more of a thing, so it included that. And so the messages that they received as children in the school system is that their language didn't belong in an academic setting, that it wasn't useful for upward mobility. And that was a message that was passed on to us. And even when we went to school, teachers would tell our parents that speaking to us in Spanish would confuse us or delay us, mm-hmm. which are a lot of the myths that we've dispelled now. And we know that multilingualism is something that can help support us, help us be more academically successful, and even help us into old age and protect against dementia.
Yeah, and as you know, we were talking about earlier, in Europe, for example, especially because a lot of the countries are so close, and even in Africa, so many mm-hmm. countries are so close, they can be multilingual, exactly. Oftentimes are.
Yeah, exactly. So I lived in Denmark for 5 years with my husband, and so I think that that's where I really understood and saw that, like, wow, this society is completely bilingual, mm-hmm. at least.
Or trilingual.
I
know a lot of my European friends speak 5 languages.
Yeah, many languages, but at least English and Danish, mm-hmm. in addition to other languages, was the norm. And so it's not a question of like if we can do it. We know that we can, but it's a question of how we can do it and how we can shift things to, set our kids up from a very early age to be able to do that.
And your children are now how old?
They are 5 and 7.
And they're speaking?
They're speaking English, Spanish, and Danish.
Yeah, and you made an effort to make sure that Spanish was a part of their cultural background as well. So they're trilingual children,
yes.
right? Okay, and they're only one of their generation in your family that could actually speak with your grandma, who's their great-grandma, right?
Their great-grandmother before she passed, and which was a very important thing for me because, you know, I couldn't really communicate with her growing up. It wasn't until I was an adult and learned Spanish that I was able to unlock, you know, this whole family history, this relationship, this connection that I would have lost had I not been able to communicate to her in our familial or heritage language.
And not just knowing the words, like we can all do, you know, learn that part at some point, but knowing the colloquialisms and knowing the, you know, the meanings of stuff, really, right? Okay, the Bili App. Explain how this works.
Yeah. So our organization, Bilingual Generation, works with a lot of families and educators to support multilingualism with children. And through our work with them, there was this clear desire for having tools and materials that reflected the culture of their children. We very much say that language isn't just, you know, about grammar or about vocabulary, but it's about identity and connection. And so out of our work with our community, we decided to co-create the Bili App, which is what we say language learning that is abuelita and science approved, which essentially means that all of the text in there is 100% authentic Spanish. It reflects the diversity of our community and its identity forward language learning.
Yeah, and that's interesting because with that, when you say the Hispanic umbrella or Spanish, is a wide one, right?
Exactly.
Because there are some things I would say in Venezuela that they go, no, we don't say that here. Right?
Yeah.
I would say, so even learning the nuances between the different nationalities, if you will.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So one of the stories that we have here that you can find in the Bili App, which I think is this one, localismos, shows all the different ways that you can say the same word in Spanish. So here on the front cover we have a snow cone, and in different, depending where you are regionally, you can say raspadilla, yunyun, piragua, many different ways. And so we wanted to promote the diversity of language within the Spanish language, within the Latino community, and help normalize that there's not one right way to speak Spanish. You know, my parents, who are native Spanish speakers, failed their high school Spanish class because they were receiving Spanish from Spain and not Spanish from the Rio Grande Valley.
One of my son's friends, who's he's like from Mexico, but his dad is Mexican, his dad is Cuban, his mom is Mexican. He's like, I'm having trouble. Like, I speak it every day, but I'm having trouble passing this. But anyway, this is so cool. You've won awards for it, South by Southwest Education 2025 Community Choice Award. So congratulations on that, and thanks for kind of broadening people's perspective.
Thank you so much.
All right, for the full Cadillac Shaping Houston story featuring Dr. Veronica Benavides, log on to shapinghou.com, and to learn more about Bilingual Generation and the Bili App, visit bilingualgeneration.com or find them on Instagram at We Are Bilingual Generation. Muchas gracias.